This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Tommaso Menechello of website builders. And much as Menechello can turn a game in an instant, Squarespace allows you to turn yourself from someone who has no idea where to even begin building a website to someone that goes, oh wow, I just built a full website in less than a single hour with easy to use features, fully functioning tutorials and simple, straightforward tools. You can have a website of your very own up and running in no time, able to be published, updated, refurbished, worked on anytime you like with all other factors, domain names, programming, text, blog features, integrating stuff, adding a shop, a store, everything you could want all in one place easily thanks to Squarespace. And if you want to do the same and build yourself a lovely little or big website, please head to the link in the description and use the offer code SquidRugby to save yourself at least one money, come to think of it, on a very shiny website.
We used to dream of days like this for 26 years. For a quarter of a century, 1 week, 1 2-hour block, every year, the entire rugby world would tune in and wish for one result that never came. Every year. And finally, in 2026, it's happened. Italy have beaten England men for the first time in their history. The first time in the Six Nations, for the first time next year's Six Nations, will to go in with Italy able to say they have previously beaten every single team they'll play.
Forza Az. This might be the biggest day in the history of Italian rugby.
Yeah.
They've obviously beaten the Springboks before, they've beaten the Wallabies before, and these are obviously titans of the game. In a way, this one probably trumps those because, as you mentioned, they play every single year.
Yeah.
And it's the monkey off the back, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, history is so stacked against Italy on this.
Until they beat the All Blacks, which you increasingly feel is going to happen, right? It's not a when, not if. This is the biggest day. 9 times England put 50 plus points on Italy.
Wow.
Like, that is something that continues to hurt. The most recent of those was just 3 or 4 years ago. Like, they have been pushing for this for so long. They've been wanting and needing this.
They always
And every
target
now
the
and
England
again-
game as well.
Yeah.
They bring out the big moves. They brought out like the Fox and like all of these times when they've played against England. Like, this is a game that they've been desperate to win for so long.
Yeah. And yet they finished within 7 points a couple of times back a decade ago. The kind of Parise, Zani, Marci, Castrogiovanni generation. A few years ago, Italy finished within 3 points. Admittedly, thanks to a try right at the end to bring the scoreline down from 10 points, but all the same, finally they've done it. This was a result the Six Nations needed and has needed for a very long time. And this is a result that shows just how far Italian rugby has come. And it wasn't just the result, it was the way they did it, right? It was all 23 players. You know, Tommy Allen only played 3 minutes, but he still contributed in the same way. Being
And again, he's a leader.
so fired up and so up for it and working so unbelievably hard. They did it in a very Italian rugby style of play. Like, it was a glorious, brilliant try. It was one moment of individual magic alongside. And then it was blood, guts, fire, passion. It was flying in the face of a bunch of the trend, you know, in terms of every team kicks for the corner right now. Italy took their points, they took their penalties, they did it their own way. All the things we think about when we think about Italian rugby, right? It was Diego Dominguez taking his points. It was one moment of magic from, you know, Menechello in the Sergio Parise mold. It was the scrum going really well. It was incredible work rate, really good breakdown work.
Stylish backline moves.
So many tackles, such a high tackle count throughout. It was everything you want from Italian performance and win.
Yeah. So Paolo Garbisi was the heart of this as well. And we've talked about this a little bit throughout the Six Nations, but he is playing like a 50 test fly half at this point. And he's managing the game brilliantly. Alongside his younger brother, Alessandro Garbisi, playing at number 9, and Alessandro Fusco coming off the bench. They managed the game so well.
Another very, very Italian thing is having 2 sets of brothers in the starting 15.
Yes.
Like, that's very Italian rugby.
Yeah.
And I thought both Garbisis were excellent, and Fusco when he came on. Italy's kicking game was the biggest factor in them winning this. And there's been a lot of talk post this about England and what went wrong from an England point of view and why were they kicking so much ball, why were they being so conservative. And I think there's several angles to look at this, right? And I think it's worth, before getting into what Italy were doing, laying out England's strategy going into this game. So a lot of people keep bringing up, why are England never changing? Why are they only playing the same strategy? Why are they playing the same way every week? Why can't the players adapt on the fly? And the thing is, that's what they've been doing. England have played a different game plan 3 successive weeks. So against Scotland, they played the same plan they've played for the last year broadly, which is a lot of contestable bombs, really swarm that ball, put a lot of pressure on, only really play off front football, which most of which is being run by those area contests. That did not go well at Murrayfield. That did not work, as I'm sure many England fans remember, and many Scotland fans remember even better. Against Ireland, England kept holding much more ball. They did exactly what people keep asking them to do and play more ball in hand. England only kicked the ball 18 times, which is the lowest of the Steve Borthwick era, right? They kicked the ball as many times by half time against Italy. Like, against Italy, they then changed the game plan up entirely again and went, okay, instead of kicking contestably, what we're going to look to do is emulate something Steve Borthwick did with Leicester. And I apologise if anyone watched our preview. This is something I did bring up there as kind of speculating they might do. But Leicester, when coached by Borthwick, right, had one game where they had to put out a second 15 against Bordeaux away for various reasons. And in order to win that game, in order to look at how Bordeaux played and pin them back, because Bordeaux was so open and so attacking and will play from anywhere, broke the record for most kicking meters in a game ever. They were past 2,000 kicking meters, which is absolutely insane. Like, no team has crossed 1,000 in this year's Six Nations. No team crosses 1,000 like ever. So they just levered the ball long constantly and pinned Bordeaux back. Bordeaux were unable to do anything at all. Whenever Leicester were even in the opposition half, they were still pinning them back, putting it on the try line. And England went into this game bringing in Finn Smith, bringing in Seb Atkinson, bringing in Elliot Daly in particular, in order to emulate this game plan, in order to play much more territorial rugby, right, which then opens up opportunities from there, which we'll get onto in a second. But we saw time after time, this is something England also did against France last year in the Six Nations, a game they won thanks to a late try by Elliot Daly. They consistently put kicks long, put kicks when they got into attacking opportunities. Look at Ben Spencer here, slinging it through off a scrum, off England's first real attacking opportunity of the game. He sticks it in behind. Or here, Elliot Daly, he did this a bunch of times. Like, watching this back a second time, I thought Elliot Daly was outstanding. Yeah. In a way that first time you're like, yeah, he's played broadly well. He was, like, excellent, and he really delivered on his game plan because he understands it inside out. And the point of these kicks is you slide them long and you put it in really difficult positions to exit from.
Yes, and this one, for instance, where he slides it along the floor, and Lorenzo Parney's actually in a pretty good position here, but because that ball is travelling physically so fast, it's quite a difficult kick and it's so low to the ground. It's a difficult kick to field because you're risking knocking it on if you actually go for it. Or this one where he escapes the tackle of Lewis Liner and then sticks it in behind onto the try line. And Alessandro Garbisi has to do quite a good job of waiting for the ball to travel over the try line before he grounds it.
The other problem is, I think, Borthwick changed the team in order to run this game plan. And in the process, other than Elliot Daly, who was an inspired selection, played very well, you put in a lot of players who aren't used to playing this way, right? So Finn Smith, yes, he kicks long at Northampton more often than they kick high, more often than they hang bombs. However, he wasn't necessarily used to playing this way for England because he's used to playing their usual game plan. Even goes double for Seb Atkinson. Very good player at Gloucester, but I thought had some difficult touches. So, like, this is an example of exactly the situation that England want, right? They're pinning Italy back, and what they want is situations like this. So Itoje, who was brilliant at the weekend, did a really good job here of disrupting the Italian maul, disrupting their exit, meaning that it ends up scrambled, Garbisi's under huge pressure, he has to just clear the ball any way he can. This is exactly what England want. They want to put pressure on the clearance, they want to put pressure on Italy, and the ball goes long, it lands in the arms of Tom Roebuck, he looks up, he's one-on-one with Alessandro Garbisi. This is a great opportunity. This is exactly what England want, right? So he slaloms round, he gets going forward, England now massively on the front foot. And the game plan basically is we want to pin the opposition back, pin Italy into corners so that they kick and we create chances like this. However, Seb Atkinson has only heard the first part of that plan here and he goes, okay, the game plan is when I see this space, I'm always going for it. I'm always pinning it back. So he puts in this kick when it's on here to play and to get to width. Like they've been doing the first part of that. They're doing the decision that Atkinson takes here in order to open up the space to attack on chances like this, where if they just go through their hands, if he straightens up, they're getting into the 22, potentially it's a try-scoring opportunity from there. At the very least, they've got a chance to then play in the 22. And if you then play this on, we start to see what Italy did to unravel it from there. Atkinson kicked this on the 10-metre line, right? From this line out, Italy then clear it, they land it a couple metres on from the 10-metre line. And then England kick it back, and Italy regather. They're suddenly outside the 22. And they kick it back further, and eventually they end up kicking it well into the opposition half. And each time, Italy were just kicking 5 metres further than England. So I want to bring up a stat, right? I mentioned that the most kicking metres that a team in professional rugby has ever achieved was Leicester and Steve Borthwick. That record still stands. It's frankly ridiculous. 2,000 plus kicking metres is insane. I went through every game from this World Cup cycle in the Six Nations and a few in the autumn, right? And as far as I can find, England on Saturday achieved the second highest kicking meters of any team in the Six Nations since the last World Cup.
Wow.
And I couldn't find any higher in Autumn Internationals and other games I looked at, right, in international rugby.
Wow.
Do you want to know the highest anyone achieved was?
Go on.
Italy in this game.
No way.
Italy kicked even further than England.
Fascinating.
So England went out going, okay, we're going to kick for length. And Italy understood the plan and went, brilliant, we're going to kick 5 metres further than you. England kicked for a total of 952 metres, Italy for 993, like 30 more, right? So when you consider they kicked exactly the same number of times, they both kicked 27 times, like each of Italy's kicks was literally just like an average of like 3 or 4 metres further.
Yeah, because they've watched England. They know how they play. And the proof of what you're saying is the fact that England actually reverted back to plan A, so to speak, when they brought on Jack Van Poeltfleet in the last 20 minutes.
And when they found themselves in a 2-point game.
Yes, exactly that, when they know we have to close this out. It's a situation England have found themselves in before. In Argentina, that second test last summer, they brought on Jack Van Poeltfleet, and he did exactly that. So it's very easy to look at this and kind of go, oh, why is he kicking it so much? It's to create scattered scenarios. Yeah. And off these boxes, England are very good at this because their escort is so good. And in that game, it led to Argentina dropping more men into the backfield, it creating space, and Guy Pepper setting up that try for Van Poeltfleet to score himself. We did a video looking at specifically like Van Poeltfleet's contribution in that game and like how it won the game, like at the time. So if they're in a similar situation here, where that's what they're trying to do. And Alessandro Fusco came on very smartly, changed the style of kicking slightly. So he wasn't going for length and he wasn't quite going contestable in the way we know it. He wasn't just going for 50-50s between Monty Ioane and Tom Roebuck on that wing, because Roebuck is a slightly better player in the air than Ioane is, and it's fine, you know? But Ioane is exceptional on the kick chase. So what they did was they just put an extra 5 metres on top of what they usually would on these kicks, meaning Monty Ioane can smash whoever catches the ball way behind, and they can get a huge territorial advantage out of that. This is an outstanding kick where they land it on Elliot Daly. It's quite close to the touchline, and Ioane skates around 2 or 3 English players to get onto this kick chase, and critically defends from the inside of Elliot Daly, meaning Daly has to go on the outside. He has to go close to the touchline to beat him. And then Federico Ruzza follows up brilliantly, and after he beats Ioane, Ruzza then kind of just pushes him towards the touchline. He ends up going into touch.
Their kicking game consistently just took what England were doing and pushed them back a yard or 2. And so literally the only kicking battle we saw in the game, England conceded early because Italy every time were pushing them back 5 or 6 metres further. And it was a really, really mature performance from both Gobbeses, particularly from Paolo, who I thought was exceptional. And you have so many moments, right, where like both teams had this, where their first attack in the opposition half, they went through quite a lot of phases. England here go through 10 phases, then eventually go for a kick that is quite easily covered and leads to them losing ground a moment later, right? Italy, on the other hand, go through 6 phases. They don't waste any effort, really. It's all like straight up carries. Cool, we're not going anywhere. Garbisi slides it in. He puts in a much longer kick that just about lands in 22. It isn't a 50-22, but all the same, England are going to have a difficult time exiting here. And sure enough, they do. It is always about keeping that pressure on and making sure England are playing on Italy's terms. And we mentioned that final quarter. And so much of that last period, right, was Italy kicking into situations where they knew England would have no choice but to box kick back, kicking into heavy traffic, kicking into positions where the winger is catching it, and even if England regather it, even if Italy don't win it back, which they did on a couple of occasions, the English player is looking up and going, oh shit, I've got 3 Italians right in my face. Like, and then being smashed, and then, okay, the forwards are crabbing round, there's no one set, because I've put so much pressure on that breakdown, they have to put 5 or 6 players on that breakdown to win it. At which point, your only option is to kick it back, you're in your own 22, you've got no numbers, so you hang it back, and Italy do the same thing all over again. And they wound the clock down by doing this, and frustrated England immensely.
So there's a few moments in that second half that the game kind of swung on. First and foremost, can you please give me your stat about England's penalty count?
Ooh, so the penalty count, Italy gave away 8 penalties, England gave away 10. However, where Italy gave away 4 either side of the ball, England gave away 7 penalties whilst in possession.
Which is ludicrous.
Yeah.
That's so inaccurate.
Like, obviously you have a few holding ons. All 4 of Italy's offensive penalties were holding on. But you have things like this double banking call. Like, they just give them the opportunity.
That's another reason why England kick so much ball. Is because they're that inaccurate when they have the ball, which isn't great for them. You know, that's something that I think fans have a right to be really aggrieved by. You have this moment here. So The referee sticks his arm in the air. England have a penalty 5 metres out from the Italian line. Italy have just given away 2 penalties. There was this one for holding on that Lorenzo Pani conceded again from an excellent kick by Elliot Daly, which he landed on the try line. And England go for the points. They take the 3.
This is a really intriguing one. So we can hear on the ref mic a bit of discussion. So Ellis Genge, first one to go for the scrum. Fair enough, he's elusive prop, he's just dominated opposite number.
He loves scrums.
He then goes, okay, fine, we'll go for a tap and I'll tap it and I'll run over and I'll score. And they're like, Ellis, calm down. Then, right, Finn Smith comes in and likewise Ben Spencer is having this conversation. And they both say to Itoje, let's go for the 3. At which point, Itoje is hearing it from all sides. Genge yells, corner, let's go corner. At which point, Mauro Itoje, screams at his players, and I have it written down here, you all hear me, we're taking the 3. So, there's a moment of, discontent of none of the players are on the same page here, and I feel like they had Italy on the ropes. If you're an Italian player or fan, you are breathing a sigh of relief here, because that was the moment to kill the game off. They're narrowly ahead. They can get 9 points up here, and instead, they just go, no, we'll settle back. It feels like Borthwick said to them in the changing room, okay, let's just take 3 points, just grind them down slowly.
4
Not in
minutes after
situations
half-time.
like that. Not in situations where you're on the try line. They've just about scrambled. It's taken a brilliant intervention by Nicotera and Zambonin here on the line. Both of them kind of just going on Genge's arm. He's scoring that otherwise, right?
Yeah.
England are completely on top of it. They've just gone top at the scrum as well. You play.
They've just had 2 penalties given to them as well on the try line. The referee will be thinking about yellow cards if another one comes out.
This is something we've been saying about England for 2 years. They have all the contributing factors to being one of the top 3 teams in the world. But they haven't worked out how to go for the jugular. They haven't worked out how to identify the key moments in games where you need to go, okay, this is where we go for the corner, this is where we go for the tap, this is where we keep playing. And instead, they got used to that, they started doing that in the autumn, and now they've lost it again.
Yeah.
Those 2 games have disrupted them enough that they're now panicking again, going okay, we need to just calm this down, just make sure we definitely win the game. Let's not go too big. No, that was the moment. If you want to win the game, you go for the tap there.
Yeah. The other one, obviously, they took the penalty later on. Completely understandable.
Yeah, fair enough decision.
When you're 5 points up, you want to turn that into an 8-point cushion. That is the...
And there was no momentum there, right?
Yeah.
They'd had one attack, they'd gone forward 1 or 2 phases, and then they received the penalty. Kick those points.
There is one thing about this English performance that, as a just general fan of rugby, that really pissed me off. And that was their management of the sin bin period.
Yes.
So, Giacomo Nicotera, a brilliant player, he's been one of Italy's best players this
Was
campaign.
very good for the other 50 minutes he played.
Yeah, utterly outstanding. Gets a yellow card here. And England don't capitalise on it whatsoever. As I mentioned, they kick that penalty, completely fair enough, good decision. Builds a bit of a score whilst they have that sin bin period, completely fair enough. But the thing that, again, I think this will piss a lot of England fans off, is the lack of adaptability to what's happened. So, Giacomo Nicotera, again, I mentioned he's a brilliant player, he's a brilliant line-out thrower. I texted you during this game and said, if I were Italy, I would stick on Mirko Spagnuolo at this point because he can throw into line-outs, because Italy don't have a hooker on the pitch. They didn't have a scrum during that 10-minute period, so they didn't get to sub on Tommaso Di Bartolomeo. They had to just carry on playing. And I can't help but feel like if you're England in the situation, you have to start kicking off 10 a lot more, just for this 10-minute stretch. Because what you want to do is, you want to find the touch lines. You want to see, can we spank this ball long downfield, get it to bounce into touch, so we can give Italy line-outs. Because Michele Lamero was throwing in, he only threw in 1 line-out, and it was 9 minutes in to the sin bin
It was
period.
from that example of Elliot Daly running into touch.
Yeah, so it wasn't even from a kick.
Yeah.
So at no point did they step up and go, right, okay, let's give them line-outs, because we all know what happens when there's a hooker in the bin. They will either just throw to the front all the time, where you can just stick somebody in the air and get 50-50s, or they throw not straight all the time, or they end up overthrowing. All of these are going, they're not doing intricate moves where they're doing dummy jumps and putting people at the back. It never works when you've not got your registered hooker on there. England just failed to adapt to this. They failed to kind of recognise that that's what they had in front of them.
I think there's 2 sides to this, though, and one is Italy managed that sin bin period exceptionally well. So they played so little rugby. They were kicking the ball, but consistently then going for, same as we talked about in the last 10 minutes once they got that final try in, right, and they knew they had to shut the game down, they went, okay, we're going to play the same way as though it was the final few minutes. We're going to hang these bombs for England to be forced to kick it back. So the first phase of possession from either team post that yellow card being given was given 5.5 minutes into it. So England had about 4 minutes beyond that, and Italy still exited, and even then, right, there was, straight after that, the Sam Underhill tackle. And so realistically, there was about 2 phases in that half over the full period, it just meant that England could build no momentum whatsoever because Italy kicked incredibly smartly.
Yeah, and England just failed to counter it because when you watch Ben Spencer playing for Bath, every single week he does the wipers kick where he goes for touch himself because he's got a massive left boot on him and he likes to kick for leg when he plays for Bath. And obviously, we say the same with Alex Mitchell, like England are primarily a contestable kicking team. Obviously, they slightly changed their approach on this occasion, but I just can't help but feel like that's what you want to do. You want to find those touch lines. Even if it sacrifices a few metres off your kick, you're potentially getting the ball back in advantageous positions and you're really punching Italy for that. On the flip side, England got a yellow card for Mauro Itoje, who was their best player on this day. He was a complete nuisance. And the yellow card was the proof of just how well Mauro Itoje was playing, because in the early second half, every time Italy got into the ascendancy, got into the England 22, and looked like they were about to score, like the gut punch, Itoje would come up with something, pinch the ball off them, whatever.
3 turnovers.
Yeah, which is huge for a second row forward.
At the breakdown.
Yeah.
3 breakdown turnovers.
And then, when he wasn't on, suddenly, guess what? Italy steal the game. You know, the winning try was scored whilst Itoje was off the pitch. Like, I know that it's the second row and the try was scored out wide, but I still don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, we'll get onto the try in a moment.
Yes.
But like, I think it's also worth highlighting some of the other things that, yes, Itoje was a nuisance, but so many Italian players worked so unbelievably hard. And I think it's worth just pulling up like this moment from Menechello Lamro in the maul.
Yes. So England overthrow this line out in attacking position, wanting to maul this over the try line, and they throw it beyond the 15-metre line. This is a really effective move. Wales used this against Australia in the 2023 World Cup and scored off it because you're getting the ball to where there's a bit more space. The maul defence is a bit thinner.
Yeah, 1, the maul defence has to work around further. 2, if you want to, you can bring it back to them immediately. Because the offside line disappears once you cross the 15-metre line.
Yes, and you can potentially maul against the fly half here if you do a good enough job. So yes, as you mentioned, there is no offside line at that point. The line-out is officially over. It's just open play. And so Menechello Lamro very cleverly leaves the Italian side of the line out and just sits behind Alex Coles like he's the intended receiver here. He steals the ball off him, and Andrea Zambonin, incredibly wise to this as well, just comes around the back, comes around the side. This can't officially be a maul because the ball's been taken by Menechello Lamro. It's just a contest at this point. It's not a maul, like they're not pushing against each other. The ball just spills out. He takes it, he trundles upfield, and Italy clear their lines from there. But incredible game IQ from the pair of them, particularly Menechello Lamro, identifying in a split second.
He's so sharp on it.
Yeah.
He's so fast on it.
There's no offside line. As soon as the ball goes beyond the 15, he doesn't even need to think. It's just an instinct for him to steal this ball. It's genius.
Or like this, and Fischetti had a bunch of moments. He had a couple of turnovers that were outstanding. But this, I think, sums up the Italian effort from all the forwards. England run a really nice move where they hit up, they go wide, and the idea is they get on the outside, get going forward, and then when they work back the far side, all the Italian forwards have worked so hard to get over to the other side that it means you have in the kind of 13 key centre defensive position here, Daniele Fischetti, who is a prop, and therefore you think you can target him. So they go to width and they figure, cool, we'll get outside them because that's where the space is, and then the prop won't have worked in quickly enough. But instead, yes, there's a scrag tackle, Guy Pepper makes some yardage, then Fischetti catches up and knocks him into touch. And it, to me, captured everything the Italian forwards were doing all day. That you look at Niccolò Cannone and his brother Lorenzo Cannone, both of them was so all action, so all over, one on either side of the ball, really. You had one carrying everything, one tackling everything. And I think this Italian effort ultimately came down to them never giving an inch, never switching off, and always fronting up to everything England threw at them.
There are not many props in the world who can cover that ground like Fischetti does there.
Yeah.
However, sadly, that fact that not many props can do that did count against them when you look at the try for Tommy Freeman. So England carry in field for a few phases here, and Paolo Garbisi is defending the blind side. He looks up and he starts gesturing to push the other way. Nacho Brex is quite close to the breakdown here, and Tommaso Menechello is on the floor, having just made a tackle. Simone Ferrari, a classic prop who was in the team mainly to scrummage, had just made a tackle himself. He gets up, gets back into the line. However, he is covering a lot of room himself here. Finn Smith's touch on this is lovely.
Yeah, so he spots first up that essentially Italy are marked up fairly well here. They've got one guy out wide just to watch in case the cross kick comes, but otherwise the forwards are just watching their opposite numbers. The England attack is focusing the other side, but Finn Smith spots, hold on, that's a prop retreating into the line late. And so he swings around last second and critically drifts onto the ball so late. Like, he catches the ball when he's done most of his working outwards, meaning that he's now facing Fischetti. I love this touch. It's so George Ford-esque.
He can straighten up when he gets the ball.
Yeah.
He does most of his kind of like his sidestepping before he catches the ball, then straightens on Ferrari, so he has no choice but to bite in on him.
So many 10s would be tempted to throw the miss past himself here, which then puts Liner exactly what Liner wants here, the time to work across, and he can probably put the winger into touch, Freeman in this case. However, instead, he just waits, sits off, and he plays with Alex Coles every week at Northampton, right? He watches him in training. He knows he's got the miss pass in him. So instead, he drops off the little pass, and Benno comes onto a lovely line on the outside, forcing then Liner to go, okay, I'm watching three guys here. Who am I going for? Who am I stepping in? Instead, it's not the three guys, it's the three man that he should be watching. And Cole throws a lovely pass, like flat ball, doesn't risk it being in the air for too long, so that Freeman can canter over in the corner. It's a really well worked try.
Yeah. And similarly, the try scored by Tom Roebuck in the first half.
This is just an example of how Italy likes to defend. And it's clearly something that they had spotted in the week, England, and gone, just keep an eye out. Italy might give you this picture, in which case this will be on.
They scored a very similar try against France last year in the Six Nations.
Last time they kicked like this, right? Last time that they were kicking, well, they did it against Argentina in the summer as well, but when they were so like, we're going to do attacking kicks on 22 constantly. And what it does is that forces the fullback to always stay in the line behind. So Lorenzo Pani here starts working inwards, as Finn Smith does, and then shits himself when he sees Finn Smith turn around and go, oh, okay, right. You can argue that Ioane should cover this, but at the same time, Roebuck's so good in the air and he's in the team for this kind of situation. It's a big part of how Italy defend, right? Is they like to have players in positions where they can make tackles, where they're useful. You don't want your best tacklers waiting on this side just in case they go that side. No, they're going this way, so we're going to work them around. We're going to have as overwhelming a line as possible. And that also allows them to go for jackals, right? And so we saw so many turnovers from Italy because they defend like this. And yet it does lead to one soft try. That's kind of the risk they take, is they go, okay, we've got always players in position, they're always flooding numbers, and it means we've got one guy extra there who can go for the jackal. However, sometimes it'll present an opportunity like this, and Finn Smith calls their bluff. And Tom Roebuck finishes absolutely superb.
And critically as well, 90% of the time, Roebuck, he's a work rate winger. He likes to come off his wing and find boots he can get into, find little lines he can run off 10, give himself loads of options, hunts for the ball. However, on here, he's just stayed on his wing. He's forced Ioane and Pani to both kind of hold their width a little bit there. So, yeah, it's really, really smart by him. As you say, probably a bit of a pre-call from England that they know that's how England defend.
Yeah, it's not like we're going to run this as phase, but it's a little bit like, if you spot this picture, no, that's an option that's open to them.
Something that's wild. We have gotten, 20 odd minutes in this video, how far are we in? We've not even said the name of the Messiah yet. We've not talked about him.
No.
We've not talked about the guy who produced one of the best individual performances of international rugby thus far in 2026. One of the best performances we've seen in the last few years, really. Tommaso Menechello.
Yes. I think a big factor in this game was both teams' nominal best player, Itoje Menechello, were their best players on the day. And then when you get into the final quarter, one of them gets binned and one of them creates a moment of absolute magic. And if we look at his first moment of magic in the first half, right, this is the sort of thing that Italy weren't doing a few years ago. And without Menechello, this is a very good, very noble loss where they kicked the goals and they kept it tight and they really defended well, but ultimately they couldn't hold out. With Menechello, they've got almost every single game 2 moments of bullshit in him.
Yeah.
And this try, very few other players in the world are scoring this. It's so subtle. So you have Daniele Fischetti here, does a really good job on Ben Earl. So Ben Earl's trying to fold around the corner. He cleans him out and kind of L's in. He works him back against the grain, meaning that he's cleared out. And that essentially means there's one fewer player on the fringe here for England. So both of these two defenders out are watching a bit more space. They've got to go inside and outside. It allows Alessandro Garbisi to have a little bit of a run, a little bit more space.
So the setup Italy have here is they have Tommaso Menechello stood as the first receiver, Nicola Canone running a hard line off him, and Paolo Garbisi in his boots. Now, there's one thing that changes here, because Menechello is looking up, and this is a sign of, he's not only an incredible athlete, but an incredibly intelligent rugby player. And this is the side of his game that we're seeing build out, and I can't wait to see what Toulouse do to kind of build on this, because he clearly has the smarts. So, Sam Underhill is working out here to kind of the third man out, kind of the third guard, I guess, who often is there to mark the first receiver. He looks up, he sees he's got Menechello marked, he's all good. Now, any good defence coach will tell you, you have your head on a swivel here, and Sam Underhill actually does this, and he kind of gets caught out. So he has his head on his swivel, he looks up, he sees Menechello, and then he looks towards the breakdown, just to check where the ball is, to see what Alessandro Garbisi is going to do. You want to watch the 9, and also as a 7, he wants to smoke the 9. That's part of his job. However, on the 1 second when he suddenly turns his head inwards, Menechello changes his line. Instead of being a first receiver in the classical sense, he flattens up and he runs a peach of a line off Garbisi.
It's so good. It's so good. He goes through with barely a finger laid on him, and then he swerves and beats Elliot Daly without him getting within 5 metres of him.
It's a finish, isn't it?
It's a hell of a finish. Like, it's the pace as well as the strength. He doesn't even need the strength, really.
He's a bullshit level athlete.
He's so good.
You also look at moments like this defensively where England are going backwards here. There's a bit of a comedy of errors going on here from England. Tommy Freeman kind of pops the ball up off the floor to Seb Atkinson. It's all bobbling around. No one's enjoying this from an English perspective. Menechello gets high on the line and he could just go for a circuit tackle and try and just win the ball back here, do whatever, just try and get this man on the floor quickly. He chooses to absolutely melt Seb Atkinson here. I love that he does this.
Yeah.
Like, he brings that moment of physicality. And, like, that's a bit of a game-changing moment. Like, it lifts the crowd, it gets everyone on their feet, like, going, you know, our big unit has just smashed the poor lad playing opposite him, you know. And, as you mentioned, poor old Seb Atkinson, like, no one wants to be playing opposite Tommaso Menechello, but he was utterly world class. Like, this Six Nations, he's been incredible. And honestly, the kid is only 23. There is an argument that he could be about to win his second Six Nations Player of the Tournament medal here, which is insane. Like, he has the potential to overtake Sergio Parise as Italy's GOAT, like, further down the line.
Genuinely, we're getting to that situation. And he was the guy who created the big moment. He was the guy who created the try for Leonardo Marin in the end. However, this try was also created way further back by the other GOAT, Mirko Spaniolo. So this is a really good little set by England. They go through the pick and goes. They're playing very tight. They're getting going forward. They know this is the critical moment. If they score here, it's lights out. They're secure. Their record carries on for another couple of years of, you know, they've never lost in Rome. They've never lost here. So both Nicola Cannone and Mirko Spaniolo go into this breakdown. Now, Cannone, the referee is fairly consistent on this all day. He goes straight off his feet. He's not trying to, but he loses footing pretty early in trying to hit this breakdown. And he rolls out the way. He doesn't affect the ball. And ref consistent on this all day, as have been all Six Nations. Lets that go. Doesn't give a penalty there. Fair enough. However, he has got in the way of Guy Pepper, who is going primarily for him as physically the bigger guy, right? Going, cool, let's get him out of the way.
It's like a visual distraction for Pepper.
Exactly. And that means Spaniolo, literally, it's so simple. He picks up the ball and he falls over in the process. And there's a little bit of you. You look at this once and you go, has he not just flopped on the ball? You're like, no, he's lifted the ball, then he's flopped around and presented it back. And this then allows Italy to get it out. Marin puts in a brilliant kick.
This is a beauty.
So Leonardo Marin himself puts in this kick, leaves it to roll, knows that England got no one home, so just sends it as long as he can and sends it infield critically, which means that all the pressure comes on here. He chases and follows up with Liner himself, gets involved in the ruck, then England kick it, and Italy regather, and instantly Paolo Garbisi looks up.
Yes. On first phase, he goes for the jugular. He goes for the really ballsy move. So he calls the ball out the back of his free pod, and he just sees an opportunity. Yeah. Monty Ioane's out here. He's not unmarked, but there is enough space between him and Roebuck that you can probably sense that Ioane is going to catch this ball.
This is one of the great things about the kicking game and about the chaos this creates, right? So England have had all their forwards tied in a pick and go sequence. They've then all worked back to get onto this ruck because there's so much chance of them losing this. And between the two phases they play of just like recovering the ball and then playing one phase on to kick off it to set up a better position, all 7 forwards on the field, because Itoje's off at the minute, all 7 are in this little group here. All 7 have had to work so hard to get from bam to bam, and then they just work forward, and they just work out all within sort of 10 metres of the ruck. And it means at the backs, you've got Finn Smith and Elliot Daly both in the backfield. You're obviously one player down at the moment. And it means just it's the centres and Tom Roebuck having to cover most of the width of the pitch because this ruck is on the touchline. And so once the forwards have thrown that one pass, Garbisi is on the outside of the entire forward pack, and he's only got 3 defenders to beat.
And critically as well, you mentioned the whole forward pack are in there, and like Ollie Chessums and Bevan Rod are kind of late to get back in there as well. So they're still working back at this point. So there's a knock-on effect, which, you know, we were talking with Sam Lana recently about this, how like it's actually really difficult to attack because you've got to set your depths and you've got to be in the right positions. Like it's actually a bit harder than defending, and also getting whacked all the time. It's bloody hard. Anyway, Italy have only sacrificed Lewis Liner and Leonardo Marin. You know, that's their winger and their inside centre. And granted, a part of this is because Lewis Liner's excellent at the breakdown. You know, he loves to get stuck into rucks, like he's been doing at all Six Nations, just like it's clearly an area of his game that he's really built out. And so they've not had to sacrifice any of their kind of like key members of this. So they can really set their width off that first pass off 9, off Fusco. And as you mentioned, Garbisi is already on the outside there.
So Garbisi puts in the kick. It's not the best kick of his career, but it critically lands safely for Ioane. And Roebuck has to work so hard because he's covering so much room, right? If they go through the hands, Italy is still making ground off this. As it is, he has to harry because he's watching primarily for the pass, as you should. You know, it's kind of wing play 101, right?
Yep.
The kick lands in the hands. He has to work too hard. Ioane can beat him on the outside and get the pass into Menechello. And from there, it is just pure bullshit from one of the best players in the world.
How does he stay on his feet when Elliot Daly whacks him?
Elliot Daly's like has been a world-class fullback, has played like World Cup final in this position. Like, he's not a bad player and he's not a bad tackler. And yet, he just like passes through him like a ghost going through a door. Like, what is the point in Elliot Daly being here? Like, what's the point in being a defender?
He does a 360 off the back of it.
So he just sort of like undefendable spin moves through it.
Yeah, 360 no scopes England.
Yeah, and then just draws Finn Smith coming across as the other cover in the backfield that's left them so light in the main line, and bam, Leonardo Marine can go in. And I love that it was someone who was so involved in the entire sequence. He's put in the first kick, he's followed it up, he's been involved in the tackle, then the ruck, and then he's run the support line. And notably, right, this is the biggest moment of his career, biggest moment of his life. And he then, when the camera cuts to him, just goes, oh, exhausted, because he's just put in 100+ meters of effort in the lead up to this try. And like, it's a beautiful and brilliantly worked free-flowing try, but it's also like evident of everything they've been doing all game long in terms of smart kicking tactics and really good defense and work at the breakdown and working unbelievably hard.
Leonardo Marine has finally become the player that we all thought he would be.
We all hoped he would be,
when he was a kid.
Yeah.
He was always a very promising little player, but also at the same time it was like, well, he wasn't sure what position he really wanted to be, and as a fly-off, he was always stuck behind Paolo Garbisi, so, and they're the same age critically as well. So that was always a tough one, but now he's really found his role in this Italy team. He's a utility back, but he brings that real directness as well as the kicking game to them. He has been brilliant in this Six Nations.
He has.
Speaking of, so the final moment, like the gut punch that Italy got at the very end, Michele Lamoureux's final turnover.
Yes.
This is brilliant from Lamoureux. So he spots that Trevor Davison, in order to clear one player out, has to slightly come in the side here. Again, it'd be very pedantic to call this as a penalty. Referee's been consistent on this all tournament, you know. You don't want to be just blowing the whistle for everything, you know. Every team does it. Trevor Davison comes slightly in the side, and because Lamoureux knows they can't penalise both teams at once for it, and he's not going to ping me when he's already in the side, Lamoureux just very slightly takes a shortcut.
One of his feet is in the middle of the gate. The other one less so, but that's fine.
And then he swings around a little bit more after
he works around as he's being cleaned out. He kind of swings around a little bit as the hit's coming on it. However, the referee goes, okay, both teams are coming inside a little bit. I can't penalise both sides. What's the only other penalty here? It's holding on.
Yeah, and Lamoureux taking that little bit of a shortcut, and this is, you know, we're talking 1%ers here, but that's all you need in international rugby. When somebody is strong over the ball as Michele Lamoureux, again, a guy that we were questioning, what's his role in this team, you know, even though he's the captain, when we've had Manuel Zuliani coming up and being Italy's best forward for the last year or two. And yeah, Lamoureux absolutely brilliant over the ball, really strong. They try and clear him out, they can't, and he gives Italy the lifeline that they needed when it looked like England could potentially have stolen the game.
They run the clock down, kick the ball out, and start a party, and a kind of scene that like we've all been waiting for a very long time.
Nicola Canone's already crying when the camera like pans to him like immediately after full time. Interesting as well that England don't contest that final line out when they could win the game, which that's a very strange one.
It's the thing about triggers and stuff though, is right, like you want to try and catch them off guard, and I don't know if it's just a time
That's very
thing
true.
and so on.
It's
and
very
like,
true.
You know, teams work very hard on making sure that oppositions don't jump there.
But yes, Nicola Canone already in floods of tears by the line out, probably. Incredibly passionate man. Incredible scenes in Rome.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that Italy have got this because they are now that level.
Yeah.
They are at the level of like the rest of the Six Nations, and a lot of people questioned whether they would ever get there. And it's happened.
Didn't.
No, we didn't.
Like,
but
and
2026 is the year. Like Italy are like the Six Nations is a really even competition. You know,
Yeah.
and like when obviously, and I say when, not if. Like when Wales become competitive again, like that will, you know, the Six Nations will be in such a healthy place as it already is.
Yeah. I think there's a conversation to be had another day about what's wrong with England, why England couldn't close this out, because this was a game they should have won. And yet, you want to take nothing away from what a brilliant day this was for Italy and how well-deserved this was.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, right, this was a really even game for 70 minutes, and one team found a way to win.
Yeah.
One team produced the big moment, and the other one blew their chances and couldn't do it.
It can be summed up by those two Simbin periods, where England struggled to find a way of exploiting the lack of a hooker.
They found a way, struggled to get into the opposition half, never mind create a try.
Absolutely. However, when Itoje was off the pitch, Italy scored the winning try.
They scored 10 points.
Yeah.
You know, it was 10 points versus not getting in the other half.
Incredibly clinical by Italy.
Yeah.
This performance has been it's been kind of on the back burner for a while.
It was exactly what you wanted. Like, this was not Italy's best performance of the championship, ironically, but it was a performance that's been coming for a very long time, and I think captured all the work that's been going in for a very long time. And I'm so glad so many of these players got to have this day because they've deserved it for quite some time.
Hopefully they just don't have another one in a bit against Wales. That would be quite nice.
Yeah, if they could. I think they're done now. I think they've proven the point.
But regardless, for the time being, we will lean into it. Forza!